If you watched the last screencast, you saw how simple it is to publish an API from a TinyBird pipe. But you probably also thought, what the heck? What good is an analytics API without query parameters? In this screencast, I'll show you how to add query parameters to your SQL with TinyBird's templating language. Let's rock and roll. Okay, so if you remember from last time, we created an endpoint to get the average session duration from sessions on our website for the last 24 hours. That's all well and good, but let's make this endpoint a little more dynamic. I want to add a few query parameters to this request. First, a start date time. Second, an end date time. Third, a filter to only include sessions that include a particular page. So let's jump into that SQL in the TinyBird UI. And we're going to add these parameters in the second node. And the first thing we'll do is add this % character to the beginning of the node, which lets TinyBird know that we intend to use query parameters in that node. Note that the UI will actually automatically add this character if you add query parameters, but I'm showing it here for completeness. So let's start by adding the start date time parameter. We can change this where filter to say session start greater than double curly braces, which indicate the start of a query parameter. It's a datetime type. We'll call it start datetime, set a default value, give it a description, and make it required. Next, we'll add an end datetime with a similar approach, but let's do something a little different here. We're going to make this one not required so that if it isn't passed as a parameter, the query will just return everything up until the query runtime. And finally, that filter to include only sessions that visited a particular page. We're going to actually need to modify that first node to get all the pages visited in the session. So let's go up there and group all of the page views in the session into an array with group array path name as pages. And then back down in the second node, we'll add an AND statement to check if the array of pages has the past match path query parameter. All good, right? Well, just one problem. That middle AND statement will fail if end date time is not passed. So we need to do something to prevent that AND statement from executing if we don't pass the end time as a query parameter. For that, TinyBird offers an if defined statement. So we can wrap that around the AND statement, add the end, and voila. Now we'll head over to the API documentation and check out the sample usage, update some query parameters, and see how the responses change. For instance, we can update the path to include our blog homepage with /blog, or we could even use that viral top 10 data memes blog that we published this summer. We can also update the start time parameter to sometime in the future, and we'll see we get a null value in the response, which is what we expect. And that is how you add query parameters to your TinyBird APIs. Of course, what I showed you here just scratches the surface of the TinyBird templating language. For more ideas and guidance on how to get the most out of the templating language, check out the TinyBird docs. I've linked to them below if you're watching on YouTube. See you later.